Gonna give it another minute. So far, we only have 5 other council members, so we'll give it a little bit more before we get started. I think we have most of who I'm expecting immediately, so we'll go ahead and get started for now. So thank you all for coming, and we're gonna dive right into just reviewing the agenda here. So usual format with one minor slight change. So well, we'll start by taking attendance and just go run through the agenda here. The usual introductory remarks, public comment, and meeting and administration. And then we'll get into the updates from the GIS office. And then we have 2 discussion topics. One is on the strategic plan, and one is a discussion from Meg McGaffin about geospatial AI. So with that, we can start with taking attendance for the advisory council meeting. So if the advisory council members can please unmute and say they're here when I call your name. So I'll start with myself. I'm here. So just go on down the list as you hear your colleagues call themselves out. I think Scott Gall is in a conference. He may or may not be able to join today, so we can go ahead to Stu. I think Stu also said that he might be late, so I guess we might be down to Dan because I think Liz also had a conflict.
Dan Achaya from DESP here.
Gary Archambault, DPH.
So we can skip over Eric for now.
Mark Hoover, MetroCog.
John Guskowski on behalf of CCM.
Tracy DeGrazia, CCM.
Emily Wilson, UConn.
Meg McGaffin, General Assembly.
So we'll keep an eye out for the rest of the council as they are able to join in. And from there, we'll just kind of run into some introductory remarks. So thank you all for joining. This is the first council meeting of the year. It's been a minute since we had one in end of last October. On the GIS office side, we had a lot of activity in kind of November and December, which we will see when we get into our updates. And then one of the other things that we wanted to do with this meeting and kind of these meetings going forward is to kind of invite the council members to bring up a topic of discussion and kind of give a brief presentation on a topic that they're interested in or they're having issues with or they want an opinion on. And then, we can discuss those things as a group. And Meg McGaffin has graciously accepted being the first guinea pig on this. And so we will be talking about geospatial AI a little bit later in the meeting. So we're definitely looking forward to that. And I see that Peter and Eric Snowden both just joined. So we'll give them a second and make sure. Hi, Peter and Eric. Can you guys make sure you introduce yourselves?
I'm Pete Samperi, GIS supervisor at United Illuminating.
Thank you.
Hi, Eric Snowden, IT, GIS, and cybersecurity at the Capital Region Council of Governments.
Thank you. So yeah, so as we kind of go forward throughout the year, if you guys have any topics that you know feel that you want to talk about or kind of discuss amongst this group and kind of bring it up to kind of like discussion or kind of see what we want to do with things, you know, think about how what you want to talk what you might want to talk about and when you might want to talk about it, and just reach out to me and we can kind of coordinate. Ideally, I would like to have at least one council member have a discussion topic for the meetings throughout the year. I think it'll be a good way to kind of involve you guys and kind of make this um, you know the council live up to its name in advising each other a little bit more and us. With that, we can kind of start getting into some of the actual things. Before we do that, period for public comment, is there anyone that is not a council member have anything that they would like to say? Right. So, for the public comment, I think going forward, you know, for everyone, I think going forward, let's take a look at, you know, if there are any topics or questions or issues that you may have that are kind of appropriate for this group to weigh in on. And I invite people to kind of maybe prepare a quick question or something to have this group discuss in the future. But for right now, we can move on. Meeting administration. I don't have any changes to the administration of this meeting. Do any of the council members have any changes or suggestions or things that they want to discuss in terms of the structure and function of this group? All right. Yep, Mark, go ahead.
One thought, I know the public comment at the beginning of the meeting is kind of standard. I don't know if having any kind of public comment after some of our topics may be helpful as well if that gets too complicated. But I know
Sure.
if I was coming, it would be difficult to have comments if I didn't, you know, have the discussion points or
Sure.
any of the activities we're going to go over today.
Yeah, I've had that thought as well. It's kind of a tough balance because sometimes we have plenty of time for that sort of thing, and then sometimes we end up talking a lot about a certain thing and there's no time. I'll think about that a little bit going forward. You know, maybe the answer is we have like a second optional public comment period at the end of the meeting, just to make sure that we can capture anybody's questions and comments as well. But realizing that that may be one of the first things to drop if we run out of time.
Understood. Thanks.
Yep. Nope. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving right along. So we're gonna dive right into the GIS office priority topics and working group updates. This is mostly going to be GIS office updates. Most of the working groups are kind of I don't want to say dormant, but like just kind of working still, at least the ones that still have pending activities. So from there, I will hand it off to Carl Zimmerman, who is going to talk about imagery and LiDAR updates.
Okay, hi Alfredo. Hi everyone. Alfredo, are you going to advance the slides?
Yes, I can do that for you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you again. This will be a quick rundown of what's happening with the imagery and LiDAR collection. First thing is we received all the data. That's good news. Of that data, the remaining kind of caveats that should be mentioned is that we have 2D buildings that have been acquired. They've been posted in a beta service, but they're going to be revised again as part of the subcontract with between Dewberry and another contractor. So what we will receive is a second round with metrics on it, and then additional improvements will occur in 2026. So that's the current expected method for improving the 2D buildings. That being said, they're mostly in pretty good shape. We will be publishing the metadata associated with them shortly. We also received the 3D buildings. We have again, this is a beta version. We're receiving another update, which includes some missing buildings and some updates on the best buildings. I'll show you a picture in a minute. Generally speaking, they're quite impressive, with a few exceptions based because of LiDAR, underlying LiDAR issues. But one of the things we're going to talk about in the future is how to use this data most effectively for visualizations and planning purposes. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind when you think about 1.25 million 3D buildings in a state with underlying topography. I mentioned the impervious land cover. We received that subcontract that's being reviewed. I'll go back out, and hopefully the impervious cover work will begin in the not too distant future. We'll have an update definitely by the next meeting, including information on what that will include. I wanted to mention the new data download site from CT Eco. Thank you to Emily Wilson, who's on the call. That is, if you haven't gotten your hands on the data, this is the easiest place to do so, and most of the data sets are available through there. Sarah Hurley and I, who's out on vacation, are working on an imagery hub site. We have some new analytic capabilities. We've got 2 remote sensing software available now. One called QT Modeler, the other called Global Mapper. These are going to be for post-processing analysis of LiDAR and imagery. We also have a whole bunch of new storage, almost 200 terabytes. So finally, we can have all of our data archived in one location locally. I was very worried about having a problem with one of the drives, and so now we have backup available. And then finally, I'm going to mention we have some new derivative products that I'll show you in a moment. Next slide, please. So just to kind of give you a status update about where we are on the data distribution. Imagery now is available with dynamic and static services. We have LiDAR available as a download on the Emily's download site. It's in a .laz format. That is much more efficient in terms of storage. We've had several universities request that data, and we've passed them out to those universities. The DEM is available for download by tile. We're working on a beta testing for the DEM. I think it's going to come out pretty soon. I'm not going to promise a date, but we have something running for testing, so we're not too far off on that. We have a early review service for contours. So 5-foot contours are available for service and download. And then 1-foot contours available also for download on the download site. Right now we are working out the best way to get the 1-foot contours available across the entire state of the service. That's what everyone wants. The 5-foot contours with some manipulation are about 90% smaller than the 1-foot contours. So we're trying to squeeze in a lot of data into a service. So it's taking some time to optimize. I mentioned about the 2D and 3D buildings. The 2D buildings we have as an early review service, so you're welcome to look at them. Again, we're calling this a beta service because it's going to undergo revision with a subcontract. And right now we're also testing and thinking about how to spin up the 3D buildings through an ArcScene type service. We have some other raster and GIS data sets that are going to be available soon. These are far lower priorities than the ones we just mentioned. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give a shout out to Emily again. This is what the CT Eco download site looks like. Please visit it. Very, very clean, very easy to use, and it's really helped access the products for everyone. Next slide. This is a quick demo of what the Imagery Hub site looks like. It'll link back to the services and the download products. The current thinking is we'll have an elevation site as well, but that is not as far along. Next slide, please. Here's the Guilford Green, the 3D buildings, and if you look carefully, you can see you have overhangs, roof features, AC units. It's like this all across the 1.25 million buildings in Connecticut. This is a pretty remarkable data set. think about what we can do about the with this and use this for. I'm hoping that this will be used in planning purposes for the COGS and other folks, and maybe DOT as well. But we have to get this product out and start using it. Next slide, please. I wanted to mention our office intern Durga Joshi, who came from UConn. He was with us this past semester. He's getting ready to finish his PhD in remote sensing. He's going to be presenting on February 13th through the Clear webinar series, which I've linked here. And I wanted to show the 3 data sets he's been working on. Next slide, please, Alfredo. So what he's done is he's created, for the first time, we have tree level metrics of the entire state of Connecticut. These are 3 of the raster products he's produced. One's called a plant area index. And basically this is the coverage of the canopy across the entire state. Another one is called the foliage height diversity index. And that basically is is a measure of the layering. Yes, they look very similar, but this one is a metric that provides the amount of vertical layering in the canopy. So if you want to know where you have a understory, this is a metric you'd use. And then finally, the canopy height model, which gives you a raster of the entire state for each tree, essentially. So these are exciting products. We're going to put this in a forestry portal probably, and then it'll be accessible to the towns and COGS for evaluation and review. Next slide, please.
I think this is your last one.
Okay, then definitely next slide.
All right. So before we move on to the broadband, I just want to pause here for a second in case any council members have any questions or comments about anything that Carl just went over.
What is the, do I need to raise my hand?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, okay. What does the release schedule look like for this data, the veg data?
Meg, we have it in our hands. We just have to figure out where it's going to be downloaded and served up. So
Cool.
I'm thinking a month or 2, probably not more than that.
And then as a follow-up question, given the fact that the 1-foot contours are, large data, rather than hosting and posting, would it be easier to have, some sort of tool that could generate 1-footers based on a selection area, so you don't have to generate the whole thing and host the whole thing all the time?
I mean, right now it is available as a download. So
oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
that. So I think that's you kind of get, if you have a service and you have a download, you can pick for local work. You can pick the download. If you need something in a web map, then the service should hopefully cover that.
Okay, I thought you were saying that the 1-footers weren't available yet, only the 5, but the 1-footers are available.
Sorry, the 1-footer is available as download, but not as a service.
Oh, okay, that's cool. All right, thanks. That's awesome.
And I'll just be honest, the 5-foot's pretty damn good, even without the 1-foot, and it's certainly usable for a lot of non-engineering applications.
I may have missed the same explanation on the 3D buildings. Is that served? Is it downloadable? Where is that, or when?
The 3D buildings are not as far along, John. We are waiting for the final delivery. There was we found some issues in our QA/QC with some missing buildings. They're addressing that, and then we have to figure out how to put it in some kind of ARC scene and deliver it. So probably that's a good update for next time. We'll tell you how we're gonna load it up and get it delivered.
Okay, thank you. It looks amazing.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, and with that was the 2D building footprints. Are those downloadable? I don't know if I missed that too.
Mark, they are downloadable.
Feature service, I think.
The zipped file of all of them is downloadable on CT Eco on just the download page, because it's just one file. It's not in the download tool itself.
Okay.
But if you go right to the page, you can download all of them.
And there's still like a QA QC process with that. So is there gonna be another update, or are these the final ones?
So, Mark, what's going to happen is this is for the 2023 round. This is a concluding point. After we get the impervious cover done, there might be some minor changes where any missing buildings are put into an updated version. But as part of that, we're going to have a bunch of metrics like morphology metrics and other things to identify problems of the 3 to 5% of the buildings that have some problems, and then those will be the focus of 2026 to get those improved.
Gotcha. Okay. And has there been any thoughts of pushing this data to like the community maps program and giving it over to Esri for the imagery and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, yes, we did speak to them about all of this last July at UC. And they instructed us to kind of reach out to them before we start trying to upload it because it is so much. So we do have to schedule that call with the community maps team and make sure we and Esri both have a plan for getting this data kind of sent over to them, whether it's like sending a physical drive or uploading things. But our intent is and always has been to get that included in the community maps and basically anywhere else it can be syndicated.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Eric?
Well, since someone brought up the impervious surface, is there a ETA on that as well? I think a lot of the cogs are chomping at the bit for that.
Yeah. So I can answer this one too, because
I know that's a separate thing.
Yeah, so it was a contract amendment with Dewberry to have Ecopia do that. We are currently kind of reviewing and approving the subcontract agreement because our legal has requested to do that. So once we do that, then they will start work, and they have estimated that it'll be 6 weeks. So I would estimate, like, realistically, that we'll have it back kind of finished in like 2 months. Any additional questions or comments on the imagery and LiDAR and associated derivatives? All right. And so now we can move to broadband mapping. So I'll pass it along to Ashley.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. This updates are going to be really short. You're seeing here a map of the percent of locations being the state goal with data from 2021 to 2024, our newest data. Please, I used this in a presentation. Next one. So we have posted new data as of June 2024. This is aligning with the data that the Federal Communications Commission has available as well at the request of the FCC data. The next Connecticut broadband data collection is going to happen in April, and that's when we receive data as of December 2024. That's when I go out and ask all the internet service providers to send us that data. So please share this information with people that we have the data at the blog, track, and town level for 2024. The availability data, it's you can find it at the blog, track, and town, but the adoption level data, we don't have it at the blog level. Next one. So like I said, I gave a presentation with Clear. The webinar recording will be available soon. And I hope you can share this resource also with people. It's just a semi-introductory presentation for people that are not familiarized. And I imagine that a lot of people are not with the data. So I think it's a good resource for people that just want to start knowing a little bit more about broadband mapping in the state. And I think that's my last one for broadband. Yeah.
Any questions on the broadband maps and associated data? All right, then we will move right along to parcel and camera updates. So I think Leah is speaking to this first.
Oh, I'm going to share some updates just to wrap up the 2024 parcel data set that was made available recently. And these changes mark a slight but significant improvement to the data set. You can go to the next slide. So the parcel data set became available on November 19th on GIS Day. One of the key updates is that the parcel data set link is now persistent. This means you can always access the data set at the same URL year after year, update after update. For context, last year's layer did end up having the year in it, so it became unusable, but hopefully we can keep this link for as long as possible. For the format of the data set, it will be in state plane and will be going forward, will be in state plane. Some of the new fields added in this year's data set was the AYB and the EYB, the actual year built and the effective year built. We've also added FIPS codes and land acres. So now the data set is about 46 fields at the moment. We also have a consolidated version of the CAMA data set available on the open data portal. It also includes attachments to the raw data and improvement from last year. I did leave in the link field, so you can now link the data set onto the parcel data set as easily as we did, and you can add more information to it. Go to the next slide. So this year's collection numbers stayed relatively consistent with last year's numbers with submission rates. There were about 160 towns that submitted parcel data this year, and this year we did ask for the parcel schema for towns to adhere to, and 120 of them adopted the schema, and we're hoping for more this coming collection. This year we also collected 168 CAMA submissions, with 105 having the additional suppression field we added this year. In total, there were 138 towns that complied in this year's collection. I think I'm done with my portion of parcels.
Any questions about the parcel data set? And one thing I will add, there's a note here about the suppressed data. So the suppressed data is really just like where there are judges, police officers, corrections officers, where their names are to be stricken from the public record. Doesn't mean that the assessors don't know their names, because they still have to know who to send the tax bills to. But these are people that are considered a protected class under a Connecticut general statute. I forget which one. But because they are protected, they have the right to be suppressed. So one of the nuances is there are, in the 24 data sets, there are a couple of towns that are fully suppressed. So there are no, every owner name is listed as current owner. And that is because they indicated that they do suppress certain certain owner names, but did not provide us the means to verify which ones. So we took the decision to suppress the entire town until we can verify which records are meant to be suppressed. So one thing that I will add is that as we get those results, and we do get the kind of like indication of like who suppresses which records are meant to be suppressed, we will unsuppress the entire town and then only apply the correct suppression to those towns. So as we continually get that information, we will kind of move forward with that. So that's just kind of like a little extra note on that. I guess Leah has more to say on it.
Yes, and just to let everyone know, there has been an update from the original data set with unsuppressed towns already on the link.
So, and then as always, is if anybody runs into issues or sees an opportunity to improve the data set, please just reach out and let us know. And now we're going to pivot to Ashley.
All right, so another exciting news here is that we were able to execute contracts for the parcel and CAMA improvement grants. This is funding to the councils of governments to support the improvement of municipal parcel and CAMA data. Every year when we receive data, we look at this data comprehensively. And so we determine some targets of recency, match rates, data completeness, and geometry. Like I will be explaining a little bit more about that in a minute, but the total funds is $2.04 million in total. This is coming from the American Rescue Plan Act, and the monies, the funds were distributed based on the number of towns per cog. And so the GIS, our office provided data analysis on these targets to support the COGS and making the decision and making decisions on how to prioritize this funding per towns. So in the next slide, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting, but there's like three tiers. There's a primary, secondary, and tertiary, and we're looking at this created this for COGS to follow the primary priority is recency, and those are for the towns that haven't submitted updated GIS or geometry in the past years. We have about based on the analysis, we'll have about 17 towns that haven't submitted data as of 2024 updated parcel layer, and then we have the CAMA to parcel match rate, which is basically that every CAMA entry must have like a bucket or a parcel in the parcel layer, and that is for municipalities with a match rate of 98 or lower. I think in that category we have about 75 towns that have a match rate of 98 or lower. So we go down the list. The completeness of CAMA, we looked at all those 40 attribute fields, or I think in this case was 37, but we had to, look at those 40 attribute fields and see how populated they were. We gave them a percent of completeness from 0 to 100. So that the COGS have that data, and then we have the parcel to CAMA match rate. And for that, I think 51 towns have a match rate of 99 or lower, which is pretty decent. And then the final goal would be the geometric quality of parcels. So if there are remaining funds, then municipalities can use it to the improvement of geometric quality of the parcels. So very exciting. Thank you to everyone that participated and gave me feedback on the development of this plan, of this grant, the COGS, that we're very supportive in the process, and that they're still working with us working with the program. This program will run from it's running from December 2024 until December 2026. So we have 2 years essentially to work on these improvements. But we're very excited to be working with the COGS and improving this data. Any questions? Emily.
I think Emily was first there.
Oh, okay, does Erica go? It is very exciting. I'm reading the last line there about following recommendations from the GIS office and the council. And I think there is a parcel drafting standard working group, right?
Yes.
It would seem to me that it would be good to get that signed, sealed, and delivered so everybody who's doing these edits is working on the same standard.
Yes. Yeah, that is something that I be working on too. I just had to get things started in January and with the COGS, and we've been meeting every 2 weeks to determine like the process, but that this is on my goals as well to work on, definitely. So yeah, thanks for that reminder.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'll just add to that, like the bulk of that, those recommendations and guidelines are written. We just have to make sure that they're written in such a way that it makes it easier for people to understand like what the targets are, what the recommendations are. All of the information there is great. It just needs to be organized slightly differently, and that's the primary thing that Ashley's going to be working on.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and then it has to get out to the people doing the work, so
so
they can actually integrate it.
too.
I would really hate to see people do a lot of work and then get stuck with the standard and have to change it. Like that's really inefficient for everyone's time and effort. So.
No disagreement. Eric, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention to any folks on the call that don't know is that Capital Region COG, we released an RFQ for doing this work and I worked with the other COG folks to release this, and it's on behalf of all the COGs, and the on-call list that's developed will be available to all the COGs to use for for doing the work for this grant. So especially if you know a consultant, I mean, I would just make sure you verify that they've seen the RFQ and encourage them to submit. That's about it. Well, actually, the dates are questions regarding the RFQ are due next Thursday, the 13th. We will have the answers published as an addendum before on or before the 20th, and then the responses are due on the 27th of February.
Yeah, having the standards for yours would be good too, so that you're not wasting the time trying to get everybody cleaned up.
We are well aware of the urgency on those. Like I said, we just need to get them into a shape that makes sense, because right now there's a lot of really good information, and there's just meandering a little bit too much in terms of like the different topics, so that they need to be structured a little bit better. And that's really kind of what we want to do, because we don't want to issue guidance and recommendations that are confusing, and that's, I think, really what we're trying to solve for at the moment.
I'm happy to take a look too, or provide input if you guys are looking for that.
Sure. Thanks. Lisette?
Yes, first, thank you so much for all of your work on this, Ashley, and everyone at OPM. It's incredible to coordinate 169 different ways of receiving this information. One question I have is, I know that road polygons don't have a designated field, so they can be a little bit difficult to parcel out, and sometimes point geometry will populate the road networks. Is there a plan for the upcoming iteration of the parcel data set to have a designated field so we can filter those out with our analysis?
Yeah, so one of the things that we are doing, we are going to make an adjustment for the 2025 collection about parcel types. It won't solve the problem immediately, but it will begin to solve the problem, and eventually it will kind of create a situation where we can query those rights of ways out much more easily, as well as other different types of parcels. So that is a kind of a minor change that is going to be coming for in kind of like in a more practical way for the parcel collection itself. It will reflect it. All of that is already reflected in the drafting guidelines. But we can make that kind of to say like, hey, in the parcel draft, in the parcel submissions, the parcel type field should include one of any of these categories.
Perfect, thank you.
Have a question?
Will you come sit with me?
What was that? All right, so I'm going to move on to the next topic. So I'm going to fill in here for Sarah, who completed some very interesting kind of tasks and projects. The first of them is the legislative maps for the 2025/2026 session. So late last year, early this year, we were asked to create a printable PDF map of the legislative districts with a list of every representative and senator, etc. We were so we kind of kind of went down, and we had an example to work off of. And so really what we did is we kind of took the map, and there's like 151 different legislative districts, especially for the House. So we kind of started thinking about how can we symbolize this in a way that isn't going to just kind of be like a huge mess of a rainbow of colors. So we employed a tool that lets us use the four color theorem to symbolize it using only five colors. So as you can see, that's kind of what we ended up here. We applied it to both the towns and to the districts. We can kind of denote what the towns are and what the districts are without kind of them interfering with each other and becoming too busy. We have published these maps as PDFs on our official website, the portal.ct.gov site. So you can download the PDFs, print them out. They're 11 by 17. They look fantastic in my opinion. But then we also publish the data sets pre-symbolized using this methodology on the Geodata portal, so you can download those as well. And the different maps that we created are for the House of Representatives, the state Senate, and Congress and the congressional districts. And in the case of the State House of Representatives and the state Senate, we also included the symbolization by party. Red and blue, as everyone is kind of used to. Once again, that was also part of the request made by the legislative liaison for OPM. So, like I said, this was like a really great map and a really great kind of cartography exercise that we went down. Sarah really kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit on how to figure out the symbology, but I think it turned out great. And we are toying with the idea of making a Find My Representative kind of application. We're still trying to figure out the best way to do that and the best way to kind of, because it can be a slightly slippery slope if, in terms of like the capability that we add. So we just want to be very cautious when we're creating the interactive application that goes along with it. Any questions on this topic before I move on to the next thing? So the other thing that Sarah worked on that we are very near on completion, I think we got pretty much have to make a couple minor little tweaks, is that we've updated the Connecticut Housing Data Hub. The biggest thing is this is a dashboard that kind of look at the different aspects of housing. There's a lot of different aspects that are kind of covered in here is, things from like permitting, housing stock, housing affordability, and housing programs. And the kind of the real interesting thing about this dashboard is that we use commercially available data. We use state data from different state agencies, and we also use Census ACS data in kind of like a combined manner to kind of really try and explain the topic of housing as best as we can. So it's not all encompassing. It doesn't cover everything. We just tried to, really kind of hone in on kind of like the key things that people might be interested in to kind of dig into. This was originally a request that came from the governor's office late in 2023, I think. The version 1 has been out for about a year or so. So this is our first kind of big refresh. So some of the things that have changed is we have a new backend workflow, mostly done in Python, just to make sure that we can update the data much more quickly and efficiently, because before it was very kind of cobbled together and just kind of made as a prototype. So now we're kind of restructured the data so that it's and the processes associated with it. So it's more of a kind of production ready process, and we can kind of replicate it a lot more easily. The other thing is we use the most up-to-date data sets available from anywhere from DCD to the Department of Housing to the ACS, and as well as even the Realtor.com. We cleaned up the user interface to make it a little bit easier to use. The whole thing is a little bit more organized and just views a little bit better. We cleaned up some of the metrics that just weren't working and things like that. And then finally, we've switched from Redfin data to Realtor.com data for that home landing page, primarily because the API from Realtor.com was a lot easier to work with. And so we are able to pull that data in a lot more regularly and easily to kind of make sure it stays up to date. Some of the new visualizations that are in that map are home value, the median home value, and then the mortgage burden. These are ACS kind of calculations, and we kind of added those because we had the rent burden before, but we also wanted to make sure that we covered, people who that might be burdened on mortgage. So, that means 30% of your income goes towards your mortgage or more. So these are very interesting metrics that we have. The map has generally been very well received amongst the people that have reviewed it. Yeah, so we will announce most likely when we release the newsletter. We will have the new version fully live about that at that point. Any questions on the housing dashboard?
I don't have a question, but I just put some kind of food for thought in the chat. We've gotten a lot of comments lately from our comms team about using the branding in certain ways and like color, more than just the sort of like ADA compliant color code stuff, but like if you're adding a list, naming the list widget instead of like list 2 or things like that in the background. So I would check some of that stuff out. The one comment we got recently that I was kind of surprised at was the not having white text on the blue, but like you can see in my background, that's our literal logo. So I was a little confused, so we've been trying to use like the kind of navy color they put out or the black. But yeah, just food for thought there.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. We've been looking into that as well. We've been kind of evaluating that, like our color schemes and kind of the way we use the colors interactively. I think some of the things that we tried on, in particular, the legislative maps reflect some of those efforts. That's part of the reason we went with the 5-color theorem on those maps, just to try not completely overwhelm and differentiate things. We actually even printed that map out in black and white to see what it looked like, and it still shows up very well and differentiated. So, we are taking those things into consideration, but thank you for bringing that up. That's a really important topic.
Yeah, one of the things they wanted us to add a lot were those like list widgets. It's like, I don't know, they don't look great in my mind, but it does add a much easier way to navigate through some of the things.
Yeah. Oh, understood. Yeah, we'll take a look at that and we'll investigate it. Meg, go ahead.
Just to follow up on Liz's great point, within PowerPoint and within Esri, there are accessibility checkers that can help help you find these accessibility issues you might not know of. So just it's getting easier to do these things.
For sure. Yeah, there are some resources from the National States Geographic Information Council. They have a working group now active to specifically look at accessibility in geospatial applications and maps and all of that. And they are definitely coming up with a lot of good insights and recommendations. I will likely be learning more here coming up here at the end of this month at the mid-year meeting where they are slated to present on that topic. So I will make it a point to bring back any kind of insights or resources that they provide. Any additional questions from the group on the housing stuff or adjacent topics? All right, so now I am going to pass it off to Carl to talk about the strategic plan updates. As many of you know, we are required to do annual updates to the 5-year strategic plan. Carl, as he will elaborate shortly, has already started work on that, and we are going to be doing, and I'm sure he'll have many more things to say about it.
All right, thank you, Alfredo. Statute 4D-92 points to an annual update with a 5-year window. Last year we had the relatively extensive baseline strategic plan where we had a lot of outreach. We used historical information. The the framework that I'm working under is that this will be one of the next 3 to 4 years will be annual updates that are really progress reports. And then in year 5, the next year 5, we will have, again, a more extensive update. Next slide, please. So I sent out a memo to all the advisory council members. This is a short overview of what the proposed annual update looks like with some critical questions. I wanted to have this so you could think early on about what this might look like. I've started some work and I'll describe that, but this is a very good time to have member input into the process so we can address anything that is not covered in this first organization outline. Next slide. So this is the kind of the overview of the approach. So the first thing is that because this is an annual update, we did a major effort. Last time, this scope is intended to be somewhat constrained. We will review the mission and vision statements. The expectation is that there won't be much change. Same thing with strategic goals. Those are unlikely to change, but this is the time to reevaluate them. Again, there's going to be a data collection. I sent out an annual survey that is somewhat modified from the last one with a little bit more focus on data and programmatic issues. We will have a statewide meeting probably in mid to late March where stakeholders can give input, and then I'm reviewing basically the various literatures on what's happening in the geospatial world to look for things that weren't there last year, basically. The intention then is to update the baseline for the activities and objectives, the programmatic information and the data, identify successes. There have been a good list of them, and then review these objectives and activities that were part of the goal setting to make sure that we are making progress. And if we're not making progress, we address it in these 3 to 4 years till the next 5-year plan kicks in. Next slide, please. This is the annual survey. Here's a link. It went out to the GIS network. I sent it out to the COGS as well recently. It'll go out to the planners and probably CCM and others as well to get as much coverage as possible. Again, the idea was we want to get baseline information about what people perceive as strengths and weaknesses of the current approach. They do have open-ended questions as well as follow-up questions from last year. So there'll be some things we'll track and see if any improvement has occurred through a survey. Next slide. So I have half a preliminary draft finished, but this is what the outline looks like currently. Again, updates, if any, on the vision and mission statements. I personally think they're in pretty good shape, but this is you need to tell us if you think there should be changes. Their strategic goals are also, I think, appropriate. But again, let us know if you think there should be changes. Executive summary, a bunch of background material about new technical capabilities, core programs, data plans, and other things that we can work with. A fairly significant list of the successes. The policy environment, that's things like the rise of AI, climate change, new funding challenges. These are things that force the plan to be altered because we have new information. We live in a different political world than we lived in last year for several reasons. So those things should be incorporated in the plan. A summary of the stakeholder responses. We're going to have an internal review of the objectives and activities. A possible thing to do is the SWOT, which is that's the planning tool, and then references and appendices. Next slide, please. So with that, that's a quick overview of the proposed annual plan. We're hoping here is to hear your input on this path. Are there things missing? Are you liking the structure? Basically, this is a good opportunity for the council to weigh in on ideas and thoughts or concerns where we're at right now for this update. With that, I'll pass it to the council and Alfredo.
Yeah, I mean, I think here we really want to hear from you. We want your input because, we take it seriously. This is meant to be done in collaboration with you guys. So, if you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas for this, well, we are all ears.
And while you're thinking about this, I'll mention one of the things that to think about is what are things that have impacted your domain or your professional practice that might be new that weren't there last year, or things you've heard from your colleagues. This is one of the places where you can bring information up from your colleagues and like-minded professionals to mention and get addressed.
I don't know, this is John Guskowski. I don't know if this is fantastically helpful, but I just wanted to reaffirm that, in looking at the mission, the vision, and the 5 goals, I think we've sort of written and agreed on them broadly enough that I think they're still very applicable. I don't think we really need to do any wordsmithing or updating. Those that reflects the mission and the vision that I would like to continue to see for this organization. So I don't think any changes in those structural documents are necessary at this time.
Okay, thank you, John. I'll throw out one other thing. I sent the memo. Was that missing anything that you needed? Or are there other things you need to help with the process?
No, the communication and the transparency is appreciated.
Okay, good, Meg.
Yeah, and actually along those lines, Alfredo, I'm pleased that you are sort of widely sharing the links and invitations to this meeting to sort of the general public and the user population. I think that's great, and as evidenced by the number of people on the call today, it's great.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I view these as public meetings. Everybody has kind of like a stake in this and should be able to hear what we're talking about and doing. Any other thoughts?
Alfred, just let me mention if anyone has any offline comments they want to make or discussions, reach out to Alfred or myself, and be happy to talk with you one-on-one or just send us a quick email, and I'll respond as fast as possible.
Yeah, and to that point, please reach out. We do want to hear from you, whether you're comfortable speaking in the setting or not. We definitely want to hear from you, whether you think you will agree or not. We still want to hear about it. We take these comments and ideas and conversations very, very seriously, and we consider all of it.
I mean, one quick note. I know I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I know we got this memo on Tuesday, and I haven't had a real long time or availability to go through it. It would be helpful if we got that a little earlier before the meeting. I know we got the agenda and everything on Tuesday, but just to enable a more robust discussion, it may be helpful to have this a little more heads up.
Understood. We'll make a concerted effort to adjust that. All right.
And maybe one more
Everyone-
thing, Alfredo,
Yeah.
like going back to the earlier comments and with what John just said, that we should definitely make time for comments for all the folks that have shown up, especially if you're looking for input. Let's make it easy to collect.
Yeah.
So maybe make sure that our schedule does include time for public comment at the end.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. So in the interest of being able to do that, let's kind of move on to our next topic, which will be Meg McGaffin talking about geospatial AI.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited and eager to talk about this. This is a topic that I've started looking into a lot recently, and I'm pleased to be able to begin a coordinated discussion here with my peers. Um, so just to begin, I want to address just a couple fundamental questions. My goal here is to get us all on the same page in terms of a baseline understanding of the technology and some vocabulary so that when we go into the discussion period, we're all beginning from the same place. So the things I want to just discuss really quick, AI versus generative AI, where are we? How does AI learn? Why should I use it? How do I start? What if it's evil? And where are we heading? So I'm just going to go right through. There's going to be a lot of content here. Let's get in it. So first of all, these are just some basic definitions. That we need to all understand at the same level so we can have this discussion. So artificial intelligence is like a computerized simulation of human intelligence that can perform tasks. Machine learning is a way to teach an AI by giving it lots of data and usually text. And what it does is it works on generating, predicting the next word in the that you ask it to, and is really like a word prediction machine that gets tested and trained. A neural network is a computer system that mimics the brain's ability to connect information together by learning. It's consisting of interconnected nodes of chips. It's a very advanced way to teach these AI systems. Deep learning is a way of using multiple neural networks to improve the accuracy of the AI model that you're creating. Large language models is is about teaching the AI to respond to you in that natural native language so that it's easy to communicate with the technology. Generative AI, which is the really kind of the realm we've been in for the past year, is the ability of AI to create new content. So when you put in a prompt to chat GPT or something and you get an image or text or music or a story or something, that is the AI creating content rather than just giving you predictable text responses. And then geospatial AI is using AI with GIS data and analysis. So there's a lot to learn, but these are just some kind of understanding this vocabulary will help you learn more. The sources for this talk, I went to Geographic Analysis Center at Harvard, where we had a conference on evaluating the science of geospatial AI, attended the AI and GIS at the As a User conference. This source number 3, this link right here, I would highly recommend everybody give it a shot. It's a nice video for getting this baseline understanding. And then I used Microsoft Copilot and OpenAI ChatGPT to help with this presentation as well. So where are we? In terms of AI, in terms of the technology, today, February 6, 2025, we are in a period of disruption. And I mean that in the sense that the norms that we expected to follow before have been upended by advances in technology. For example, DeepSeek, I'm sure you've all seen it in the news. It is an AI model that's freely accessible. It's more efficient and it's cost less to use to develop than other current models. The disruption that DeepSeek has caused, it is now causing other companies like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft to rethink their pricing and strategy on how they deploy and serve out AI technology to the public. The ability for AI to become agentic, meaning like for it to become independent and learn by generating new ideas based off of its familiarity with recognizing patterns, that's becoming viable. It's bizarre. So where I see us, and this is the way I explain it, like what you're looking at, this photo here on the screen, this is the Cumberland Gap. This is the gap in the Appalachian Mountains that was expanded in the late 1700s in this country, and it's the gateway to the West. This is how we settled the frontier of the United States. This gap in these mountains was the road. And we have found this road. This road is now open and it is available to all of us. So in terms of where the technology sits, that's how I view where we are. So one of the things to understand AI is how does it learn? Like, how is it explaining this to you? How is it giving you answers? So what usually typically happens is a bunch of data, massive amounts of data is collected, aggregated, hopefully cleaned. Then you would choose a model type to learn your data, a decision tree, a neural network. There's all different ways to learn. Then the model will read the data and make predictions. So when encountering an error in their predictions, the models will self-correct until fewer and fewer errors are made. Then the developers would give the AI a new set of data that it hasn't seen before to see if it was actually still accurate. And then the model gets fine-tuned and released for use. The model is then monitored and maintained to ensure accuracy. So what this is really explaining right now is a pre-trained model. Like, that is most of what you're going to interact with, is that the model that you're dealing with has already been given all of the data to learn from. And when you give it new information, it doesn't add it to the model. The model doesn't incorporate new information until it's trained to do so. Before that was, had a level of human involvement. Now the technology is advancing to the point where the AI is going to teach itself and is being connected to other models. So that field is changing, but this AI learning flow is the basic, kind of AI 101. So why should I use generative AI or geospatial AI? The intention behind this technology is to accelerate intelligent decision making, to improve your productivity, to develop insights that are driven by data, creating assistance to help you with tasks. You can save time writing code, clarifying your writing. In terms of GIS, there are AI models that will detect cars and planes and houses and land cover and habitat. There are a lot of models, geo AI models available for use through Esri's Living Atlas. So if you want to start looking at the GIS side of things, you can, kind of begin exploring there. A lot of the technology capabilities are focused right now on image classification, but text and other sources of information are improving and becoming more integrated in GIS. And this is not housed by Esri alone. There's a open source GIS geo capabilities and models that are available to use outside of the Esri ecosystem. So how do you begin? Like, what are you supposed to do? It is overwhelming. It is daunting. What I have found to be the most important thing about using this technology is learning how to communicate with the AI itself. The video that I linked to earlier has a lot of really great suggestions for doing that. But what you have to understand is the more specific you make your request, the more tailored the response will be. One helpful thing to know if you're, if you're interacting with a GIS chatbot or any chatbot, include how you want the answer delivered. Don't just say, what is the most important thing about AI? You'd do better to rephrase that question. List the 5 major advancements in GIS technology, or, I am a GIS professional in this field. How do I do X? Or, provide me with a table of, help me write a script to do blah. If you clarify your query, you will get a better, more targeted result. So asking for the results that you need, a summary, a script, a table, that helps you get closer to your objective. And through practice, you'll learn to revise your requests to get better results. And if you want to practice, there's a lot of free chatbots out there to use: ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Perplexity, Didio, DeepSeek, Gemini, I think is Google's. And as you practice, you will get better at communicating in general, not just with the AI, but your own communication skills will improve. So what are the limits? Like, what can't I do? Really, how you deploy this technology in your work and your professional life will depend on your creativity and your ability to write a good prompt. Sometimes AI will give you a wrong answer. You're not guaranteed that you'll get the same answer every time to every question. In my field, in my office, we're developing a deterministic AI so that it will deliver the same responses every time, but that's something we chose to do. There are sustainability and environmental issues around AI. It takes a lot of electricity. AI can hallucinate and give you answers that don't make sense. And so, you kind of have to learn how to double check and know when you're not given something that you want. And another limit is these private companies, even if they're quote unquote open source, they are not sharing how they train their models or the data that they're training their models on. Sometimes that's not transparent. And understanding that is important, because you won't always know where the answer is coming from. And what if the AI is evil? Like, what if we're all just like throwing caution to the wind and AI is going to take over? I think that's a common fear. It's a natural response to something so powerful and complex. So in an AI, whether, if it's a chatbot or something, the ethics are taught to AI by the humans. The data that is used to train a model is important. If you give a chatbot sensitive data, that doesn't mean it gets integrated in the model, like I said earlier, but that data is likely stored in the chat logs and maybe could be used to train the next iteration. But it's not like if you put sensitive information in the AI that it's going to remember your conversation for as long as you stay logged in. But as far as the incorporation of that into future models, it's not instantaneous. I think it's important to recognize that this is not a fad. This is going to be integrated all over society, technology, industry, business, government. Just to, address the elephant in the room, an AI specialist is in the White House aggregating, collecting, and securing data. We don't know what the intentions are, but it's highly likely that there's going to be some sort of chat bot that's read our data. So AI may not necessarily take your job or eliminate your position, but understanding and getting familiar with this technology and becoming adept at using it may prevent somebody else who has those skills from taking your job. And also too, if you're going to start using chatbots, if you're going to generate models at work, explore the sensitivity and privacy concerns within your organization. Talk to your IT staff, talk to your executive leadership. We're all figuring this out together. And so where are we heading? Where is this going to take us? I think we're going to find things like automation are going to increase. Learning capabilities are improving. Like I said earlier, we're going to get better at communicating. The AI is going to get better at answering. Satellites, drones, and remote sensing tools are all improving. And now, AI can, we have a tool that one of our guys developed that reads satellite imagery and generates habitat mapping based on, how it's been trained. We'll be able to do more predictive analysis understand traffic patterns, agriculture, weather, land use, epidemiology, social movement. We have to really stay cognizant of the ethical considerations and privacy concerns and figure out how do we develop trust. There is no governing body over AI. There is no coordinating effort to imbue AI with a standardized set of ethics. There are efforts happening, but they're, it's elective. So real-time monitoring is going to become, easier in terms of access of an AI interpreting data from videos and other kinds of sensors. And there is going to be just increasing collaboration between academia, private industry, and government. Models are going to become more and more prevalent, more available. One thing to, if you start developing models, one special consideration is learn how the models and the language libraries, like learn where they come from so you know what you're putting together if you can. That's going to be important. So those are my 11 slides. This is a huge topic. What do we want to talk about? I'll just bring up some things from the chat. It looks like UConn was way ahead of the curve starting in the 80s as far as AI was concerned. That's awesome. Carl suggests that we don't lose control of our training data. Make sure you have a plan to secure it. The state of Connecticut currently has an AI committee and policy, thank you, Thad, and that there is also an AI risk committee evaluating the impact and use within state organizations right now. So yeah, the horse is out of the barn. So how do we direct the herd? Tracy, you had a question?
I didn't have a question. I just kind of had more of a statement, just kind of general awareness. We recently purchased a surfaces package from, I'm not going to say the vendor, from a vendor, and it was generated by AI, and I reviewed it, and it's not good. So, and I mean, that's not the general what's the word I'm looking for? Like the company that did it, like I would never think that they would put out work that subpar. So I don't know, like I think you still have to be, if you're purchasing this, if you're going to purchase data generated via AI, I don't know, maybe have them like show you an example of their previous work or something like that, because I think in some instances that it's still going to be, I mean, the data was really patchy and it was just all over the place. So
yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is like, as these new products come to market, due diligence is still required.
Yeah, we had purchased a different package from them that was really good, but it was something much simpler than surfaces.
Yeah.
So we were very happy with the first package we got, so that's why we purchased a second one, and this one was just pretty subpar. So just be aware, people.
Yeah, makes sense. There's a lot of things changing in the field. I think we're all hearing about it now, and there's so much, like the rate of change, the rate of acceleration in this technology. I think fundamentally most of us understand Moore's law. Data gets twice as fast and twice as cheap at an accelerating rate. And in terms of AI and its capabilities, it's going to be really hard to keep up. But we need to, right? Because it's being integrated all over the place. And it's important. Has anybody else incorporating AI derived products, or have you tried out chat bots? Are you finding them helpful? Or are you kind of staying away from it until you have a better understanding? Aaron's got his hand up.
Well, I just don't want people to confuse AI with machine learning, and that's something that's been in our industry for a long time. And I feel like Esri's starting to use that word GeoAI, but in reality, it's just machine learning. So as Carl alluded to, their training data, that's the important part. We're currently training models right now. We did 2 this year or last year, one for sidewalk data to do feature extraction off imagery to get sidewalk center lines. Second one to do pavement markings. And we're currently in the process of building that model out. We're in the process of training it and then QAing it, and we hope to run the feature extraction process next week off the entire state. So yeah, that's currently how our industry uses it. And in the remote sensing world, people have done supervised and unsupervised classifications for a long time.
Yep.
Like Eric said, that's something that's been done. So it requires a massive amount of QA, which sounds like what Tracy's experiencing. So anything that we do feature extraction on, we pull out, we still run it through a manual visual QA. And yeah, I don't think it'll ever take over our jobs in that aspect. But yeah, it's exactly it. And I hate the fact that Esri's been calling it GeoAI. There are some large language models that do stuff, yes, and they have them, but they also say we've trained these models to do this feature extraction, but they're calling it GeoAI, which I think is a bit confusing to people. It's not typing it in and saying, hey, off this image, give me this. It's somebody went through and trained it. They built it, and then now you could use that built model to extract features, and that's where our world sits.
The pre-trained, that's a pre-trained model that's been released, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll just add that that's like in the discussions that have happened around kind of quote AI, I've been kind of very irked more often than not that people just use the blanket term AI and not refer to things as they actually are, because they all have very specific names that mean different things. And like large language models and ML and all of these other things, and they're kind of being covered under this blanket term of AI. And AI, to those of us that have exposure to large language models and machine learning models and all of these other things, means something very different to what most people think of as AI. So I'm right there with you. I feel the pain, because it's every time I feel like I have one of those conversations, I'm very quick to correct. It's like, nope, you are talking about a machine learning model, or this is an algorithm, not true AI.
Right. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Terminology is important. And it's a lot. I mean, this is a new language that we're learning. Not only in terms of understanding how to use this technology, like we have to learn it, it has to learn us, we have to learn how to use it, it has to learn how to deliver what we want. It's, and yeah, I mean, AI has been around for a long, artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. Generative AI, these, machine learning models. These are the new parts. These are the parts that are becoming really accessible and open. And if you go fire up ChatGPT and you say, what are the major advances in generative AI, and you could ask that question every week and you will have a new answer. And that's actually a really good way to stay up on the technology. It's just ask the AI, ask the chatbot. Ask different chatbots, test different chatbots, and see what kind of results you get for your answers. It's an important capability, and right now, the thing I think that is most important to understand is that there's a lot of it that is free and open, and so the barrier to entry is low. Which is an important distinction to understand in terms of a new technology. There are advanced capabilities that you may be asked to pay for. Like if you want to have if you want to go for a walk, and this is mentioned in that video, which once again, please watch it. The guy's like, he's like, I just go for a walk and I talk to my AI and I tell it I tell the chatbot to only respond to okay with okay rather than interrupt me. And then I'll have it summarize what I said and discuss questions, then go into discussion questions with the chatbot. Just taking a walk and talking to it as a companion is a good way to get started. So yeah. It's a little daunting for sure, but it is here. And I just hope that, everybody can find a way to at least understand what's happening.
Yeah, Megan, thank you so much for your presentation. It is kind of a new world to navigate.
Yeah.
I have actually used ChatGPT to analyze some of my Python code, and it's been useful, but like we said, there are limitations. We really have to assess it, and you have to be careful with your prompts. So there's nothing like a human to reach out to.
Yeah.
From my perspective at this point, like when I contact Carl or Alfredo or someone on his team, they're really the people that can clean up my code better than AI can at this point. But I'm looking forward to seeing what their capabilities are moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do we have any additional comments or questions on this topic?
Thanks for pointing out that there is an AI group at the state government. I'll definitely want to find out when those meetings are happening and hear what they're doing.
So we have about 2 minutes left. If anyone has from the public has any kind of questions or comments that I'd like to follow up on, now is a good time since we have 2 minutes left.
Just wanted to mention that there are AI seminars going on through the CEN. The workshops are specifically on municipal AI and how to use it, and they're run by Izzy. I don't really remember his last name, but just to mention that that is an additional resource.
Okay. Go ahead, Aaron.
Wanted to see if it was possible to get an early draft of the parcel standards.
Yeah, we'll reach out and have a conversation with you about that.
Can we get it to the municipal agencies so we can start reviewing it, provide some input? I haven't seen a copy of it, but
yeah, I think where we are with that is we do want to have that and we do want that input. It's just the document is rougher than I'm comfortable putting out at the moment, so we want to make sure that it's a little bit closer to what we want it to say before we get that input. So we do intend to do that. It is like fully in our plan. We just not quite there yet.
okay. All right. I mean, I don't feel comfortable conflating standards into our parcel data sets like until we have like an actual written copy. I would like to see that before we start making changes to data. I can tell you the match rate on the Vernon data is around 75% because I withheld information that I don't know how to standardize into a state format.
Sure.
When I include that, it moves it up to 99.8.
Okay.
So nobody, like, we can't have one without the other. We can't fuse it together without having that framework.
Yep.
So it would be helpful to see it sooner than later.
I understand.
Thanks.
Anything else?
I threw the link to the video that I liked in the chat. I just want to point out that it's a year old, so it's good for a baseline understanding, but the technology has already advanced far beyond what is expressed in the video.
Yep. All right. I guess we're at time right now, so I'd like to thank everyone for making it to this meeting. This was a really good discussion, and I hope you guys enjoyed the new format that we're trying to kind of do. And if any of the council members have any ideas or topics that they want to discuss at future meetings, please reach out to me, and as things come up, I may reach out to you and ask. We'll go from there. And once again, thank you all for coming to the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.